Imagine this. She's scrolling through her phone, laughing at something a guy just sent her. But deep down, she feels nothing. No attachment, no real excitement, no emotional echo after the conversation ends. That guy, like most, will vanish from her memory in hours. Now picture this. You, on the other hand, barely said much, maybe even disappeared for a while. And yet, she keeps thinking about you, wondering why your silence echoes louder than any of their words. That, my brother, is the power of emotional void, a psychological tension so powerful it makes her crave your presence even when you're not around. And once you master it, you don't chase women. They chase the feeling of being seen, felt, and pulled into your emotional gravity, without even realizing why. This method I'm about to reveal to you is not for the average man. It's not a cheap trick or a manipulative tactic. It's a shift in how you show up. A total reprogramming of your presence, your energy, your ability to control what she feels without having to constantly feed her attention. I call it the emotional void method. Inspired by the seductive philosophy of Robert Greene, the psychological precision of Neil Strauss, and the dark truth hidden in Carl Jung's theory of projection, this is the difference between being remembered and being burned into her psyche. Let's make something clear. Women aren't attracted to men who are available 24/7. That's comfort. That's safety. That's brother zone territory. What truly seduces a woman isn't your money, your looks, or even your words. It's the emotional contrast you create in her nervous system. She gets used to dopamine hits from social media, texts, attention, validation. But when a man shows up with emptiness, with a presence so grounded in nothingness that it feels like mystery, she's forced to fill in the blanks. And that's when her imagination starts working against her. She starts asking questions. Why isn't he texting me? Did I say something wrong? Is he thinking about me? And the moment she starts thinking about you more than you think about her, the balance of power shifts completely. This emotional void is not about being cold. It's not about playing childish games or ghosting. It's about creating psychological space. A void so potent, it makes your presence unforgettable by contrast. Remember this. The human mind cannot tolerate emptiness. It must resolve it. And when a woman senses a lack of emotional closure, her brain will start looping you on repeat, desperately trying to fill the silence. That's not manipulation. That's basic human psychology. You're not making her obsessed. You're simply stepping back enough for her to step forward. And that, my friend, is where seduction begins. One of the biggest mistakes men make today is being too emotionally accessible. Always reacting, always available, always seeking connection. It feels noble, but it's weak. Because what you're doing is flooding her with emotional certainty. And certainty kills desire. If she knows exactly where she stands with you, if she can predict every move, every word, every thought, you become safe, but boring, predictable. And the human brain doesn't obsess over what it understands. It obsesses over what it can't quite figure out. That's why the emotional void method is so effective. It disrupts her pattern. She expects men to validate her, to praise her beauty, to chase after her. But when you respond with controlled detachment, when your energy says, "I'm not here to impress you," she feels that unfamiliar emotional tension, that silence, that pause. And that's when she starts investing, emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically, just to break the tension. You've created a vacuum, and she moves to fill it. There's a concept in seduction called strategic absence. Robert Greene talks about it in The Art of Seduction. The idea is simple. Too much presence reduces your value. The more people are exposed to you, the less they notice you. You become background noise. But when you disappear, even briefly, your absence becomes louder than your words. The emotional void method takes this further. It doesn't just create absence in the physical sense, it creates emotional absence, even when you're physically there. Imagine talking to her, looking into her eyes, smiling slightly, but your energy doesn't lean in. You're fully present but not giving. She can't read you. She feels something, but she doesn't know what. That's emotional seduction. That's tension, and that's unforgettable. Most guys want to be liked. They want to be the funny guy, the sweet guy, the emotionally available man. But let me ask you something. Do women fantasize about sweet men? Or do they fantasize about men who make them feel uncertain, desired, off balance? Do they dream about the man who always says good morning? Or the one who disappears for a day, then reappears with a calm presence and a subtle smirk, like nothing happened? Let that sink in. When you create emotional void, you're not punishing her, you're making her feel. And the one who makes her feel the most wins. Every time. You see, we've been taught that seduction is about action, what to say, what to do, how to flirt. But real seduction isn't about more, it's about less. It's about restraint, power, mystery, letting her step into the unknown, into your emotional stillness, and discover herself through you. Neil Strauss once wrote that the most seductive men are the ones who are the least reactive. They don't chase, they attract, and they attract because their stillness feels like a challenge. A woman doesn't fall for you in the moments you speak. She falls for you in the pauses, in the spaces you don't fill, in the things you don't say. She becomes obsessed with you not when you validate her, but when she's unsure of what she means to you. That's where obsession is born, in ambiguity, in that emotional gray area where her mind has no choice but to fantasize. And here's what you need to understand. Most men are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it, to clarify, to make sure she's okay, to make sure she knows they like her. But if you can sit in that silence, if you can own the emotional void, you become magnetic. Because now she's feeling something she doesn't feel with anyone else. Psychological suspense. That's the emotional void method. You're not just the man she talks to. You become the question her mind keeps returning to. You become the mystery that needs solving. And until she solves it, she won't be able to stop thinking about you. There's a moment, every man who's mastered this art knows it, where you're in the same room with her, and yet she feels distant from you. Not because you're absent, but because your energy isn't trying to impress her. You're not trying to close. You're not even chasing an outcome. You're just there, unbothered, present, calm. And that, my friend, shakes her more than 100 compliments ever could. Because she's used to men leaning in. She's not used to one who can sit in his power without reaching. And when you stop reaching, she starts leaning. What happens next is what Carl Jung might have described as projection. She begins to assign meaning to your silence. She projects her desires, her fears, her curiosity onto you. The emotional void you've created becomes a canvas for her unconscious. Suddenly, you become larger than life in her mind. Not because you spoke more, but because she filled in the blanks with her own story. That's where obsession is born, not in your presence, but in her internal narrative of you. This is why it's critical to understand the psychology behind desire. Desire is not built on clarity, it's built on uncertainty, on imagination. A woman doesn't fall in love with facts, she falls in love with possibility, with what might be, what could happen, what you might feel but aren't saying. Every time you hold back a little, every time you let her reach into that void and search for meaning, she invests more, emotionally, mentally, energetically. And investment is the root of attachment. You don't become unforgettable by being obvious. You become unforgettable by becoming unfinished business in her mind. Let's take it even deeper. There's a neurological mechanism called the Zeigarnik effect. It says that the brain remembers incomplete tasks more than completed ones. Unresolved stories stick with us. That's why cliffhangers work in movies. That's why your favorite shows keep you binge-watching. And that's why the emotional void method works. When you leave an interaction a little open-ended, when you don't explain yourself fully, when you don't text her back right away, when you give her that slight smirk without any follow-up, her brain starts looping. She replays the moment, reanalyzes the tone, remembers the look in your eyes. Because the story isn't done. You didn't give her closure. And now, you're stuck in her subconscious like a song with no ending. Understand this. Every interaction you have with a woman is a story you're telling without words. Most men write boring, linear stories. Predictable. Easy to read. But when you master emotional contrast, when you mix presence with absence, warmth with distance, curiosity with detachment, you create a story that lingers. One she needs to finish. One she can't let go of. That's how you become addictive. And this is where most men fail. They think being unforgettable means being the loudest, the flashiest, the most romantic. No. Being unforgettable means you leave a mark. an emotional fingerprint that she can't explain. The kind that disrupts her pattern and forces her to reflect on herself, on you, on why she can't stop wondering what you're thinking. There's a reason the most seductive men in history were often the quietest. Think James Bond. Think Tyler Durden. These men weren't desperate for connection. They were grounded, still, observant, and most importantly, they withheld just enough to keep people curious. That's the essence of emotional void. It's not about withdrawal, it's about precision. You give her 70% of the moment and let her mind chase the other 30%. Because that chase, that inner pursuit, creates a chemical cocktail in her brain. Dopamine, cortisol, oxytocin, all triggered by not knowing what you'll do next. This isn't about manipulation. It's about awareness. Women don't fall for what's logical. They fall for what moves them emotionally. And nothing moves the feminine more than uncertainty mixed with presence. That paradox is what makes you unforgettable. Now let's talk energy. Your energy is your real seduction tool. Not your looks, not your status, not even your words. Women are far more sensitive to energetic cues than men. They can feel when your attention is needy, when it's performative, when it's coming from lack. But when your energy is contained, when you're fully there but not clinging, not proving, not chasing, it signals deep internal strength. That's the moment she stops seeing you as just another guy and starts seeing you as someone she wants to understand. The power of emotional void lies in this. You stop trying to control how she sees you and start letting her wonder who you are. And that wondering, that emotional friction, creates attraction. This is why some men walk into a room and instantly command attention without saying a word. It's not charisma, it's not looks, it's the tension their silence creates. They bring the void with them. And the women in that room feel it. They feel that pull, that curiosity, that sense of, what's his story? And once that question is activated, she's already invested. Women crave depth, not access. And if you're constantly giving them everything, your thoughts, your validation, your availability, you rob them of the one thing that builds lasting desire, emotional mystery. So stop trying to impress her. Stop trying to be liked. Let her be the one who tries to decode you. Because when she's trying to understand you, she's already emotionally yours. This is the emotional game most men never play. They chase with logic. They seduce with effort. But you let her fall into the void, and you hold your ground. Calm, grounded, unaffected. And in that stillness, you become unforgettable. Now let's pull back the curtain even further, because what we're really talking about here is emotional gravity. You see, most men operate like satellites. They orbit around women, adjusting their movements based on her emotions, her responses, her availability. But the man who becomes unforgettable, he becomes the center of gravity. He doesn't move. He pulls, without chasing, without needing. And that gravitational field he creates comes directly from the emotional void. It's the silent force that says, you can enter my world, but I'll never revolve around yours. That's when her behavior begins to shift. She texts you first. She starts noticing small changes in your mood. She overanalyzes your tone, your timing, your pauses, and she doesn't even realize she's doing it. You've entered her psyche, quietly, invisibly, but powerfully. Now here's the twist that most men miss. You don't need to say anything mysterious to create this effect. In fact, saying less is the point. But when you do speak, every word must feel intentional, grounded. You're not just communicating through what you say, you're communicating through what you choose not to reveal. That's where presence and restraint combine. That's where the true emotional tension builds. Think about the most intense scenes in movies, the ones that give you goosebumps. They're never the ones with the most dialogue. They're the ones with long pauses, loaded silences, subtle glances, where two people are sitting in the same space and you can feel everything that's not being said. That's emotional void in action. And that's how your energy should feel to her, full of presence, but empty of need. This is also where masculine polarity becomes vital. Feminine energy thrives in emotion, flow, unpredictability. Masculine energy, when healthy, is stillness, direction, control. The moment you stop reacting emotionally to every text, every delay, every emotion she expresses, The moment you stop matching her chaos and start anchoring it with your grounded presence, she feels something most women rarely experience: emotional safety within uncertainty. And that's the paradox that makes the emotional void method so powerful. You're not distant in a cold or dismissive way. You're distant in a centered, grounded, anchoring way. You become the silent pillar she orbits, trying to read, trying to reach, trying to make sense of. And the more she tries, the more emotionally invested she becomes. Not because you're manipulating her, but because your energy invites her to explore, not consume. Let's take this even further. The void isn't only about external behavior. It begins internally. You must become emotionally self-sufficient. That means your inner world is already full of purpose, mission, self-respect, and internal validation. You're not waiting for her affection to feel valuable. You've already crowned yourself. And when you walk into her life with that kind of self-generated confidence, you don't need to flood the space with words or gestures. Your emotional silence speaks volumes. That's the kind of man who doesn't just seduce, he haunts. He leaves a trace, not because he overwhelmed her senses, but because he stirred something deeper, a longing, a mystery, a feeling that couldn't be labeled or explained. And that is what makes a man unforgettable. Not what he gave her, but what he awakened inside her. Now think about how this plays out in the digital world. Social media, texting. Most guys blow themselves up with too much availability. They comment on every story, like every picture, respond instantly. There's no space, no suspense, no room for her to wonder. But when you hold that space digitally, when your responses are delayed, your online presence minimal, your attention unpredictable, she starts checking your profile more often. She starts wondering why you're not reacting. She notices your absence. And your absence becomes presence. The emotional void extends into the digital landscape. It's not about playing games. It's about breaking the rhythm she expects. Every guy is playing the same game. Fast replies, emojis, likes, compliments. You break the algorithm by being unpredictable. Still, calm, selective. Not to punish her, but to protect your energy. And when your energy feels rare, it becomes valuable. Let me give you a practical layer here. When you're with her in person, reduce verbal overexposure. Let silences sit. Let her reach to close them. Let your eye contact linger a little longer than what feels comfortable. Hold her gaze, then look away. Not nervously, but calmly. That one moment, that silence between two glances, can create more emotional pull than 10 romantic messages. You see, she's not trying to logically figure you out. She's feeling for your depth. And when she can't quite find the bottom of your emotional ocean, she keeps diving deeper. That's what creates attachment, curiosity, obsession. Because in a world of shallow men, your stillness feels infinite. You don't chase, you don't entertain, you don't prove, you simply are. And that being, that unwavering presence within the void, that's the most seductive thing she's ever felt. And this is where it all comes full circle. If you've made it this far, then you already understand. Real power isn't in chasing, it's in stopping, in holding the silence, in mastering the void. Because the emotional void we've talked about isn't some cheap tactic, it's a silent statement that you don't need to beg, explain, or impress to leave a mark. You're not competing with anyone. Because when a man masters the art of emotional void, he's already won without making a move. She becomes obsessed not because you overwhelmed her with attention, but because you left space for her to feel something real, something she can't label, something that shifts her pulse. Because mystery doesn't live in what you give, it lives in what you withhold. And that tension, that lack of emotional closure, that still energy you carry, it becomes an echo that stays long after you've gone. The unforgettable man isn't the loudest, he's the one whose absence hurts. And if this message hit you like an emotional punch, it's because you're ready. You're ready to stop being average. You're ready to become the man women can't ignore. Not because of your looks, not because of your words, but because of the presence you radiate when you finally understand the power of restraint and the seduction of emotional distance. Now, if this video stirred something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. This message needs to reach more men like you, men who are tired of being overlooked, tired of being predictable, tired of being forgettable. So I'm inviting you, man to man, with nothing but respect, to leave a comment, to share this video, to subscribe if you haven't yet. Because this isn't just a YouTube channel. This is an inner revolution, and you're part of it. Drop your thoughts below. Let me know which part of this message hit you the hardest, and if you want me to dive even deeper into another topic like this, just say the word. Here, we're building something beyond content. We're building men who don't need to speak to be heard, who don't need to chase to be desired, men who master the void and become unforgettable because of it. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, real power isn't shown, it's felt.